His hand was moving. I'm staring at it right now, watching his fingers slowly curl around mine, and I can't breathe. I literally cannot breathe. Because for 3 years, 1,095 days, I have bathed this man, fed him, talked to him, cried in front of him, changed his clothes, moved his limbs during physical therapy, watched him sit in that wheelchair staring at nothing, never blinking, never responding, never giving me even a flicker of recognition. 3 years of being invisible to the one person I spent every single day with. And now, his grip is tightening. Strong. Deliberate. Impossible. My name is Maya Williams, and exactly 47 seconds ago, I discovered that Marcus Chun, the paralyzed Mafia boss I've been caring for, has been faking IT this entire time. He's been awake. Watching. Listening. To everything. Every conversation I had with myself. Every time I cried about being rejected by men who thought I wasn't pretty enough. Every moment I thought I was alone. I wasn't. But here's the part that's making my hands shake right now. I just found his journal. And my name is written in it. Over and over and over again. Hundreds of times across 3 years of entries. What did he write about me? Why has he been pretending? And why is his security team suddenly locking us in this mansion together while armed guards patrol outside? Because here's what I'm realizing as I'm looking into his eyes right now. Eyes that are actually looking back at me for the first time. The most dangerous thing in this estate isn't his past as a crime lord. It's whatever truth he's been hiding. And I'm about to find out what it is. But wait. Before I tell you how we got here and what happens next, my mom, yes, my Nigerian mother, made me a deal. She said if this video hits 1,000 likes, she will finally admit that being a storyteller on YouTube is a real career and stop asking me when I'm going to become a nurse like a respectable person. So if you want to help a daughter prove her mom wrong, smash that like button right now. Drop a comment saying he's awake if you're already hooked, and subscribe because I promise you, the twist in this story will blow your mind. You think you know where this is going? You don't. Nobody does. Not even me when I lived through it. Now let me take you back to the beginning. Back to 3 years ago when I was just a broke, invisible caregiver who thought she'd found a simple job. Back to when I had no idea my entire life was about to change. 3 years earlier, 5 a.m. The alarm screamed. Same time it had screamed for 3 years straight. My hand slapped it silent before my brain even fully woke up. I'm Maya Williams, a plus-sized black woman living in a cramped studio apartment in a city that loves to pretend people like me don't exist. The mirror on my wall showed me what it always showed: discount scrubs from the bargain store, exhausted eyes with dark circles, and a body that dating apps taught me wasn't desirable. I didn't look at my reflection long. What was the point? By 6:30 a.m., I was on the bus heading toward the wealthy hills where women like me only existed to clean, cook, and care for people who'd never learn our names. That's when I saw it through the morning fog, the Chun estate. It looked like something out of a gothic horror film. Sharp black iron gates, a mansion with too many dark windows, and a silence that felt heavy, like the building itself was holding secrets. Inside those walls was my job. My employer. The man who'd been paying me $4,000 a week for 3 years to be his live-in caregiver. Marcus Chun. Former Mafia boss. Paralyzed after some mysterious incident 3 years ago. Completely unresponsive. A vegetable, basically. Or so everyone thought. I grabbed my bag, walked through those gates, and entered the mansion like I did every single day. "Good morning, Mr. Chun," I called out, my voice echoing through the marble hallway. No response. Never any response. He was in his usual spot, sitting in his wheelchair by the floor-to-ceiling windows, facing east. The morning sun created long shadows across his expensive suit. His hands rested motionless on the armrests. His face was blank, expressionless, like a statue. To anyone watching, he was a prisoner in his own body. But his eyes. If you looked closely, there was something about his eyes. I didn't notice it back then. I wasn't looking for it. I just saw a job. A paycheck. Another day of being invisible. "It's Tuesday, Mr. Chun," I said, setting down my bag and rolling up my sleeves. "Physical therapy after breakfast," just like always. I opened the curtains wider, letting sunlight flood the room. For just a second, less than a second really, I thought I saw something flicker in his expression. But when I looked directly at him, there was nothing. Just that blank, empty stare. "All right, let's get you ready for the day," I said with a smile, approaching him with the same gentle respect I'd shown since day one. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have possibly known, was that Marcus Chun had been counting every single day. Every single one. And soon, very soon, the counting would end. The routine was everything. I knew it by heart. 7 a.m. green tea, herbal blend, slightly cooled to exactly 180 degrees. Not too hot, not too cold. 7:30 a.m. breakfast. Oatmeal, pureed because he supposedly couldn't swallow solid food. Medications crushed and mixed in. 9 a.m. physical therapy. Gentle stretches, range of motion exercises, exactly 45 minutes. 11 a.m. bath. Transfer to the specialized chair, careful washing, respectful and professional. Afternoon medication doses, position changes every 2 hours to prevent bed sores, more one-sided conversations. I did this every single day. Never late. Never careless. Never treating him like the monster the streets whispered about. "You know what's funny, Mr. Chun?" I said one morning while preparing his tea in the massive, echo-filled kitchen. "I've been doing this for 3 years now, and I still talk to you like you can actually hear me." I arranged his breakfast tray with care, my thick, capable hands making sure everything was perfect. "My sister thinks I've lost my mind. She says I'm wasting my words on a man who doesn't even know I exist. Says I should quit and find a job where people actually appreciate me." I brought the tray to him, setting it on the side table. I adjusted his collar, smoothed his hair. "But I don't think you're not there, Mr. Chun. I think you are there. Somewhere deep inside. Just stuck. Trapped in your own body." I smiled sadly, looking at his blank face. I know what that feels like. Being trapped. Being invisible. Being stuck in a life where nobody really sees you. What I didn't know was this. If Marcus Chun could have responded in that moment, he would have said, "I see you. I've always seen you. And you're the only thing keeping me human." But he didn't respond. Because he couldn't. Because he was paralyzed. Or so I believed. The morning continued like it always did. Physical therapy. I lifted his arms, bent his legs, rotated his joints while humming old gospel songs my grandmother used to sing. My touch was never clinical. Never cold. Never rough. I handled him like he was a person, not a job. Like he had feelings, even if he couldn't express them. That's the thing nobody tells you about caregiving. You start caring. Even when there's no response. Even when it's just you and the silence. It happened on a random Tuesday evening. Nothing special about it. Nothing different. Except I'd gotten a text during my shift. Another dating app match. Another guy who'd seemed interested in my profile, asked to video chat, then went silent the second he saw my face. His final message came through while I was giving Marcus his dinner. "You're really sweet, but I don't think we're a match. You're not really my type. Hope you understand." Translation: You're too fat. Too black. Too much. Not enough. Never enough. After I fed Marcus and cleaned up, I just broke. I collapsed into the chair across from him, thinking he couldn't see me, thinking I was alone, thinking it didn't matter if I fell apart in front of a man who was essentially a vegetable. Why am I never enough? I whispered, and I felt the tears start. Hot. Heavy. 3 years of rejection pouring out. I'm kind. I'm smart. I'm funny. I work hard. I take care of people. But the world looks at me and sees less. Sees someone who doesn't deserve to be chosen. Someone who's only good enough to be invisible. A tear rolled down my cheek. I wiped it away quickly, embarrassed even though I thought he couldn't see. I'm sorry, Mr. Chun. You don't need to hear my problems. You've got enough of your own. But here's what was happening that I couldn't see. Marcus Chen's right hand, the one resting motionless on the wheelchair armrest, twitched. Just barely. His jaw clenched, so slightly that you'd miss it if you blinked. His breathing changed, became heavier. He'd heard every single word. He'd felt every ounce of my pain like it was his own. And in that moment, the man who'd built a criminal empire on cold calculation, who'd ordered hits and destroyed lives without blinking, felt something crack inside his carefully constructed walls. A thought echoed in his mind, loud and desperate. You're wrong. You're enough. You've always been enough. You're the only beautiful thing left in my world. But he couldn't say it. Because he was paralyzed. Because he'd made a choice 3 years ago to disappear, and breaking character now would destroy everything. So he stayed silent. Stayed still. And hated himself for it. What Marcus Chen didn't know was that his silence was about to end. Because I was starting to notice things. Impossible things. The impossible things. It started small. 2 weeks after my breakdown, I came back from the kitchen and the wheelchair had moved. Not much, maybe 3 inches. But it had moved. That's weird, I muttered, pushing it back to the exact spot by the window where it was supposed to be. Maybe the floor was uneven? Maybe I'd bumped it earlier and didn't remember? The next day, his hand was positioned differently. I'd left it palm down on the armrest. When I came back from fetching his medicine, it was palm up. My heart started beating faster. Mr. Chun. I said carefully, watching his face. Did someone else come in here? Nothing. That same blank stare. But I could have sworn his pupils dilated. Just for a second. Then it happened again. And again. Small things that didn't make sense. A book on his shelf moved from the left side to the right. His wheelchair was angled differently than how I'd left it. Once, I swear I saw his eyes track me as I walked across the room, but when I looked directly at him, they were fixed and empty. I'm losing my mind, I whispered to myself one afternoon, reorganizing his bookshelf for the 3rd time that week. That's when I really looked at what he owned. Medical journals. Made sense for someone tracking his condition. Korean literature. He was Korean American, so that tracked too. But then, poetry. Lots of it. Pablo Neruda. Rumi. Warsan Shire. All love poems. All of them. I pulled out a worn copy of Neruda's work, the pages soft from being read over and over. A Mafia boss who reads love poetry? I said aloud, flipping through it. Almost every page had annotations in the margins, written in Korean. Did someone read these to you, Mr. Chin? Before whatever happened to you? Silence. Always silence. But his breathing changed. It got heavier. Faster. I was certain of it this time. That night, I couldn't sleep. The strange occurrences were piling up, and my logical brain was fighting with my gut instinct. Around 2 a.m., I did something I wasn't supposed to do. I went into his office and opened his medical files. My hands were shaking as I read through the documents. I'm not a doctor, but I'd been doing this job long enough to understand the basics. And that's when I found it. The initial diagnosis from 3 years ago was incomplete. The neurologist's notes from his first evaluation said, patient exhibits inconsistent pupil responses. Muscle tension inconsistent with complete paralysis. Requires comprehensive neurological workup and follow-up evaluation within 30 days. But there was nothing after that. No follow-up appointments. No additional tests. No updates. Just nothing. Almost like someone had deliberately stopped the investigation. My blood ran cold. Oh my God, I breathed, clutching the file. If the doctors thought his paralysis was questionable. If they wanted to do more tests. And then suddenly stopped. What if it wasn't real? What if he'd been faking it this entire time? But why? Why would someone choose to sit in a wheelchair for 3 years, completely dependent on others, unable to speak or move? Unless he was hiding from something. Or someone. Unless being paralyzed kept him safe. The next morning, I could barely look at him. My hands shook as I prepared his breakfast. My mind was racing with possibilities, each one crazier than the last. Finally, after I'd given him his medication and positioned him by the window, I couldn't take it anymore. I knelt down beside his wheelchair, my heart hammering so hard I thought it would explode out of my chest. "Mr. Chun," I said slowly, carefully, watching every micro-expression on his face. "I need to ask you something. And I know, how absolutely insane this is going to sound." I took a deep breath. "Can you hear me? I mean, really, truly hear me?" 5 seconds of silence. 5 seconds that felt like 5 eternities. I watched his face. Nothing changed. Same blank expression. Same empty eyes. "If you can hear me," I whispered, leaning closer, "move something. Anything. Just give me a sign." More silence. I felt stupid. Crazy. Like my sister was right and I'd lost my mind talking to a vegetable for 3 years. I started to stand up, embarrassed, ready to forget this ever happened. And that's when it occurred. His pinky finger, the smallest finger on his right hand, moved. Not a spasm. Not a random muscle twitch. It lifted up. Deliberately. Intentionally. Once. Then settled back down. My entire body froze. "Oh my God," I breathed, stumbling backward, my hand over my mouth. "Oh my God. You're in there. You're awake. You've been awake this entire time." Marcus Chen's face remained a perfect mask. Blank. Expressionless. Giving nothing away. But inside his mind, everything was screaming. She knows. She finally knows. And I have no idea if this saves us or destroys everything. I backed away from him, my mind spinning out of control. 3 years. 3 years. He'd been awake for 3 years while I bathed him. While I changed his clothes. While I cried in front of him about being rejected and invisible and not enough. He'd heard everything. Why? I demanded, my voice shaking with anger and confusion and something else I couldn't name. "Why would you do this? Why would you lie?" No response. Of course not. He couldn't break character now. Not completely. But his eyes. God, his eyes were different now. They weren't empty anymore. They were looking at me. Really looking at me. And I saw something in them that made my breath catch. Fear. This powerful, dangerous man who'd run a criminal empire was afraid. But afraid of what? Being discovered? Being hurt? Or afraid of me? "I don't understand," I whispered, tears starting to form. "I don't understand any of this." That's when my phone rang. 11:47 p.m. Marcus Chen's head of security. A man I'd only met twice in 3 years. His voice was tense, clipped, urgent. "Miss Williams. You need to return to the estate. Immediately." "I'm already here, I'm staying in the..." "No. Security situation. Mr. Chun cannot be left unattended. This is not optional." "What kind of situation?" "That's not your concern. Pack an overnight bag. You're not leaving this property until further notice." The line went dead. I looked at Marcus, and for the first time in 3 years, his expression changed. Just slightly. So slightly I almost missed it. His jaw clenched. His eyes widened. Just a fraction. He was scared. And now, so was I. 20 minutes later, the estate was transformed. Metal shutters descended over every window with a mechanical whir. Armed guards appeared at every entrance. Men in tactical gear with weapons I didn't want to think about. The air itself felt different. Heavier. Dangerous. What the hell is happening? I demanded as a guard escorted me upstairs. Rival organization made credible threats. Lockdown protocol. You'll stay in the guest room adjacent to Mr. Chen's suite. Do not leave the wing. Do not open the doors. Do not make any calls. For how long? As long as it takes. He practically shoved me into the guest room, and I heard the heavy click of the lock engaging from the outside. I was trapped. Trapped in a mansion with a man who'd been lying to me for 3 years. A man who, I was now realizing, might be in serious danger. I pressed my ear to the door connecting my room to his suite. Silence. Then, was that breathing? Was he awake? Of course he was awake. He was always awake. Screw it. I opened the connecting door. Marcus was exactly where I'd left him, in his wheelchair by the window, positioned perfectly, face expressionless. But now I knew better. Now I knew he was aware of everything. "This is about you, isn't it?" I said quietly, walking toward him. My voice was steadier than I felt. "Someone's coming for you. Someone from your old life." No response. But his breathing changed. Got faster. "That's why you've been pretending all this time. You're hiding. Using the paralysis as cover so they think you're no threat." His chest rose and fell more rapidly. "But they figured it out, didn't they? Someone knows the truth." The hours crawled by like years. I tried to rest on the guest bed, but couldn't. Every creak, every distant sound made me jump. My mind wouldn't stop racing. What was I doing? Why was I still here? I should demand to leave, call my sister, get the hell out of this nightmare. But I didn't. Because despite everything, despite the lies, despite the fear, I couldn't leave him. Around 3 a.m., I gave up on sleep entirely and went back to his room. He was exactly where he'd been. Of course. He had to maintain the act. But something was different now. We both knew the truth. The pretending was over, at least between us. I pulled a chair close to his wheelchair, closer than I'd ever sat before, and dropped my voice to a whisper. "I don't know what game you're playing, Marcus Chen." First time I'd ever used his first name. It felt intimate. Dangerous. "But if we're going to die tonight, I need to know why. Why fake this? Why let me care for you for 3 years like you were?" My voice cracked. "Like you were broken when maybe you never were." And then I saw it. In the moonlight streaming through the window, clear as day. A single tear rolled down his cheek. The paralyzed man was crying. "Oh God," I gasped, my hand flying to my mouth. "Oh my God, you're..." Without thinking, I reached out. My thumb brushed his skin, wiping away the tear. The moment, the second, my hand touched his face, his eyes closed. Slowly. Deliberately. Intentionally. It was an answer. An apology. A confession all at once. I kept my hand there, cupping his face, and felt his skin warm under my palm. "I see you," I whispered. "I finally see you." His eyes opened again, meeting mine fully for the first time in 3 years. And what I saw there took my breath away. Not the dangerous mafia boss. Not the cold criminal. Just a man. Lonely. Terrified. Desperate to be known. Desperate to be seen by someone who wasn't afraid of him. And in that moment, sitting in the dark with danger surrounding us, something shifted between us. Something that had been building for 3 years without either of us acknowledging it. Something that felt like, no, I couldn't think that. Couldn't feel that. But I did. What I didn't know was that in the next room, his safe contained a journal with my name written in it hundreds of times. And when I found it the next morning, everything I thought I understood about Marcus Chen would shatter completely. But we're just getting started. If you want to know what's in that journal, what happens when the guards storm in, and how this impossible situation becomes an even more impossible love story, keep watching. Because the twist is coming. And it's going to destroy you. Sunlight broke through the locked windows. The lockdown continued, but the immediate threat had passed. For now. I hadn't slept at all. I'd spent the entire night in that chair, watching Marcus, my mind refusing to quiet down. Around dawn, exhaustion made me reckless. "I'm going to search this room," I announced, standing up. My legs were stiff from sitting so long. "And you're going to let me? Because after 3 years of lies, you owe me that much." His eyes tracked me as I moved. Not even trying to hide it anymore. I started with the obvious places. Drawers, mostly empty. Closet, clothes organized with military precision. Under the bed, nothing. Then I saw it. The safe. Built into the wall behind a painting. I knew the combination. I'd watched him give it to his lawyer once during a meeting, thinking he was completely unconscious. My hands shook as I spun the dial. Click. The safe opened. Inside, documents, cash, a handgun I didn't want to touch, and a worn leather journal. My heart was pounding as I lifted it out. The leather was soft, old, like it had been held thousands of times. I opened to the first page. The entries were in Korean. I couldn't read them. But scattered throughout were photographs that made my chest tight. A young Marcus, maybe 25 years old, smiling. Actually smiling. Beside him, a beautiful woman holding a tiny baby. The next photo showed the same woman in a hospital bed. Pale. Dying. The baby in an incubator, covered in wires. More photos. The woman's funeral. Marcus holding the baby, his face destroyed with grief. Then a small grave. A child's grave. The headstone read, Lily Chun, beloved daughter, 3 weeks of perfection. Oh God, I breathed. You lost them. You lost your whole family. I flipped through more pages, piecing together the story through images and dates even though I couldn't read the words. His wife died in childbirth. The baby survived only 3 weeks before her tiny body gave up. And the final entry, the very last thing written before the blank pages started, was dated 3 years and 2 months ago. Right before his paralysis began. You wanted to disappear, I whispered, looking at him. The Mafia life took everything from you, and you wanted to vanish without them actually killing you. His jaw tightened. Confirmation. So you faked paralysis. Became invisible in plain sight. Let everyone think you were powerless while you... I paused, thinking. While you what? Watched? Waited? I kept digging through the safe. Found more documents. Transfer records. Bank accounts. Plans. He'd been systematically dismantling his own organization from the inside. Transferring money to victims' families. Feeding anonymous tips to police. Building cases against his own people. You're not the monster, I breathed. You're trying to destroy the monster. From the inside out. Then I found the recent entries. Pages and pages of Korean text I couldn't read. But my name appeared again and again. Maya. 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 Hundreds of times across dozens of pages. What did you write about me? I demanded, holding up the journal. For 3 years, what have you been writing? Marcus's lips moved. For the first time in 3 years, his mouth actually moved, forming words I couldn't hear. But I didn't need to hear them. I saw it in his eyes. Everything. Everything he'd been too afraid to say. Too trapped to express. Too broken to admit. He'd been writing about me because I was the only light left in his darkness. The only person who treated him like a human being instead of a weapon or a victim. The only one who saw him, not the Mafia boss or the paralyzed patient. Just him. Oh, I said softly, understanding crashing over me like a wave. Oh, Marcus. Okay, stop. If you're still watching this, you're invested. So here's what I need. If you think Marcus is about to tell Maya he loves her, comment, say it. If you think this is about to go horribly wrong, comment, run Maya. And if my Nigerian mom is watching this, we're at 600 likes. 400 more, and you have to admit I'm not wasting my life. Everyone help me out here. That evening, after the most emotionally exhausting day of my life, I made a decision. I grabbed his poetry book, the worn Neruda collection, and sat in my usual chair. I'm going to read to you, I announced. And you're going to listen. Really listen. No more games. No more pretending. I opened to a random page and started reading. I want you to know one thing. You know how this is. If I look at the crystal moon at the red branch of the slow autumn at my window, if I touch near the fire the impalpable ash, everything carries me to you, as if everything that exists, aromas, light, metals, were little boats that sail toward those isles of yours that wait for me. My voice filled the quiet room, and I felt him listening. Really listening. Everything carries me to you, I repeated softly. That's beautiful, isn't it? The idea that the whole world becomes a path leading to one person. His eyes were glistening now. Wet with tears he couldn't wipe away. I kept reading. Poem after poem. Love and longing and loss. When my voice finally grew tired, I set the book down and did something I'd never done before. I reached for his hand. Not to move it for physical therapy. Not to check his pulse. I just held it. Really held it, threading my fingers through his. I see you, Marcus, I whispered. I don't know why you chose this life, this prison, but I see you. The real you. The one who cries in the dark and reads love poems and gives away blood money trying to make things right. His hand, so carefully limp for 3 years, tightened around mine. Just a fraction. Just enough. Tears spilled down my cheeks. There you are. We sat like that for an hour. No words. Just hands clasped together. 2 invisible people finally being seen by each other. You know what I think? I said eventually, wiping my eyes with my free hand. I think you've been paralyzed this whole time. Just not in your body. I brought his hand to my cheek, holding it there against my skin. In your heart. Too scared to live again after losing everything. Too afraid to be seen because being seen means being vulnerable, and vulnerable means you could lose again. I smiled sadly. I know that fear. I live it every single day. Scared no one will ever choose me. That I'm too much or not enough or just wrong somehow. That I'll always be invisible. My voice dropped to barely a whisper. But sitting here with you, even with all this insanity, all this danger, I feel less alone than I have in years. In the dim light, Marcus's mouth moved again. And this time, sound came out. Barely a whisper. Broken and raw from 3 years of disuse. Za-are. Wait. No. He said. Ma-ya. I froze. My entire body went rigid. You spoke, I breathed. Oh my God, you actually. Beautiful. The word came out strangled, painful, like it cost him everything he had. You are beautiful. And I broke. 3 years of loneliness. 3 years of being overlooked, rejected, told I wasn't enough. 3 years of feeling invisible. All of it shattered as this broken, dangerous, impossible man spoke my truth out loud. I climbed out of my chair and knelt beside him, both hands on his face now, tears streaming down my cheeks. Say it again, I whispered. Beautiful, he managed, his voice getting slightly stronger. Always been beautiful. I kissed his forehead. Then his cheek. Then I pressed my forehead against his and just stayed there, crying, while he whispered broken words about seeing me, about 3 years of watching me, about falling in love with the woman who treated him like a human being. That's when the door burst open. The betrayal. Everything happened at once. Armed men flooded into the room. Not guards. Not security. Underbosses. Members of Marcus's old organization. Mr. Park, Marcus's second-in-command, the man who'd hired me 3 years ago, stood at the front of the group. Get away from him, he ordered, pointing a gun at me. What the hell is happening? I demanded, standing but not moving away from Marcus. What's happening, said a voice from the doorway, is that the game is over. A man I'd never seen before entered. Expensive suit. Cold eyes. The kind of man who'd killed people and slept fine at night. 3 years, he said, walking slowly toward us. 3 years of this pathetic act. We've been patient, Marcus. But the other families are circling. They think we're weak because of you. His condition is permanent, Mr. Park said, but his voice was uncertain. Is it? The man leaned down, looking directly into Marcus's eyes. Or has our dear friend been playing us all? Marcus's face remained blank. But I felt his hand twitch in mine. They knew. Or suspected. It doesn't matter anymore, the man continued. The organization voted this morning. You're done, Marcus. One way or another. He looked at me with disgust. And you, the little caregiver. Were you in on it? Did he pay you to keep quiet? I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me, he roared, and suddenly his gun was pointed at my head. Marcus's entire body tensed. I felt it. Saw his jaw clench, his muscles tighten. He was about to break. About to move. About to reveal everything to save me. No, I said quickly, looking at the man with the gun. I didn't know anything. I'm just his nurse. He's paralyzed. He can't. Shut up, the man snarled. Then he turned to his men. Search everything. The safe, the files, all of it. Find proof of what he's been doing. They tore the room apart. Found the journal. The bank records. The evidence of Marcus's betrayal. You've been dismantling us, the man said, his voice dangerously quiet. Feeding information to the feds. Transferring our money. Playing dead while you destroyed everything we built. He pressed the gun to Marcus's temple. I should kill you right now. Then do it, I heard myself say. Everyone turned to look at me. If you're going to kill him, do it, I repeated, my voice shaking but determined. But I'm not leaving. So you'll have to kill me too. Maya, no, Marcus's voice, barely a whisper, but there. The man with the gun laughed. The paralyzed man speaks. How touching. He lowered the gun and looked at me with something like pity. You really don't understand. End of part 1. Comment now, how do you think this is going to end? Subscribe because part 2 is going to be insane. Drop a fire in the comments if you need part 2 right now. And seriously, if you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Part 2 is where everything explodes.